couple of hours ago, and they were inside for quite some time, and we're just now seeing some people that are being detained, being brought out from the facility here. About a couple dozen people that are now being taken into custody. Now,
at 3:47 a.m. Pacific Time, a federal press briefing that would never reach mainstream media was conducted inside a secured facility in downtown Los Angeles. The room held 17 officials. No cameras were permitted. No recordings were authorized. The statement lasted 4 minutes. What was said changed everything. By dawn, 8.2 tons of narcotics had been extracted from vehicles designed to look like ordinary taxis. Over 500 cars sat behind razor wire in federal impound lots stretching across 3 counties. And $480 million in cartel money had been frozen before the first coffee shop in West Hollywood opened for business. But here is what the briefing did not contain. This was not simply a drug bust. This was the exposure of an empire built inside the bloodstream of American transportation infrastructure. An empire designed by the Sinaloa cartel with the help of a public official whose ambition had no ceiling and whose loyalty belonged to men south of the border. Stay with me. Because the deeper we go, the harder this becomes to believe. And the harder it becomes to look at a yellow cab the same way again. The first contact occurred at 4:02 a.m. in an industrial corridor east of downtown Los Angeles. The neighborhood was a graveyard of warehouses and chain-link fencing. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting broken shadows across cracked asphalt. The marine layer had rolled in thick, muffling sound and swallowing visibility beyond 30 yards. FBI tactical teams moved through the fog in 3-man formations. Their boots made no sound. Their communications ran through encrypted channels that changed frequency every 90 seconds. Behind them, DEA strike units flanked a vehicle depot surrounded by concrete barriers and surveillance cameras that had mysteriously gone dark 6 minutes earlier. ICE agents held a secondary perimeter to the south. SWAT snipers positioned on adjacent rooftops tracked movement through thermal optics. 2 Black Hawk helicopters circled at altitude, invisible in the gray soup, their rotors barely audible above the distant hum of the 710 freeway. The target appeared legitimate. A taxi dispatch operation servicing 134 licensed vehicles across Los Angeles County. The signage was professional. The permits were current. The vehicles passed inspection every 6 months without incident. None of that mattered anymore. The breach was synchronized across 4 entry points. Flashbangs detonated in sequence. Hydraulic rams defeated reinforced doors in under 2 seconds. Agents in black tactical gear flowed through the depot like shadows given weight and purpose. Inside, the scene was chaos. Workers scattered. A man in a dispatcher's uniform lunged for a desk drawer and was on the ground before his fingers touched the handle. 2 others sprinted toward a loading bay clutching canvas bags. They made it 9 steps before federal agents intercepted them with force that left no room for negotiation. In the main service bay, 47 taxis sat in perfect rows. Each had been modified with precision that betrayed professional engineering. False floors beneath passenger seats. Reinforced trunk compartments with concealed latches. Door panels lined with material designed to defeat X-ray scanning equipment. These were not amateur modifications. This was industrial-grade cartel infrastructure. By 4:23 a.m., the first narcotics were photographed and logged. Vacuum-sealed bricks of cocaine bearing the Sinaloa cartel Scorpion insignia. Fentanyl pills in quantities that defied casual counting, blue and lethal, packed into heat-sealed containers. Methamphetamine in crystalline form, weighed by the kilogram. The initial count from this single location exceeded 1.6 tons. But the narcotics were not what stopped the lead agent in his tracks. What made him key his radio and request immediate senior command presence was what his team discovered behind a false wall in the back office. The wall opened through a pressure switch hidden beneath a floor tile. Behind it lay a climate-controlled server room. 3 racks of encrypted drives hummed beneath blue indicator lights. A communications array linked to satellite uplinks. And a floor safe bolted directly to the foundation. Inside that safe were ledgers. Not scribbled notes or crude records. Professionally bound accounting documents with routing codes, authorization stamps, and signatures that should never have appeared in a taxi depot. Official seals from the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. Permit numbers that matched active city records. Municipal authorization codes that traced directly to City Hall. Someone inside the government had been approving cartel operations for years. And whoever they were, they had left a trail that federal investigators were about to follow into the darkest corners of California politics. By 4:58 a.m., the operation had expanded beyond its original parameters. Simultaneous raids struck 9 additional locations across Los Angeles County. In Inglewood, FBI cyber teams severed a dispatch center's connection to the wider network before operators could transmit warning messages. In Compton, a vehicle modification facility yielded welding equipment, hydraulic presses, and engineering blueprints for compartment installations that matched the designs found in the seized taxis. In Long Beach, DEA agents intercepted a convoy of 7 vehicles attempting to reach the port. Inside those taxis, they recovered 890 pounds of cocaine and 2.1 million fentanyl pills concealed in custom compartments. The drivers surrendered without resistance. They understood what happened to men who ran from federal agents while carrying cartel product. At a luxury high-rise in Marina del Rey, SWAT breached a penthouse registered to an entity called Coastal Transit Ventures, LLC. Inside, they detained a man identified in court documents only as Subject Alpha. He was the network's operational brain. The coordinator who assigned routes, managed driver payments, and communicated directly with Sinaloa logistics personnel operating south of the border. Subject Alpha made one phone call before agents reached his bedroom door. The call lasted 11 seconds. Analysts would later determine it connected to a prepaid device registered to a name that would not appear in public records for another week. By 5:41 a.m., the narcotics count had exceeded 4.3 tons. Asset seizures had surpassed $210 million. And federal investigators realized they had only glimpsed the edge of something far larger than anyone had anticipated. The encrypted servers seized from the initial depot contained a network architecture diagram that would take weeks to fully analyze. But even preliminary examination revealed connections reaching into county transportation offices, city regulatory agencies, and one name that would send shockwaves through California political circles. The first complete analysis emerged 14 hours later inside an FBI cyber forensics facility in Westwood. Specialists had been working on the seized servers since before sunrise. The encryption was sophisticated, but not impenetrable. By late afternoon, they had achieved full access. What they uncovered was a masterpiece of criminal logistics. The Sinaloa cartel called it Operación Flota Dorada, Operation Golden Fleet, a systematic infiltration of Los Angeles taxi infrastructure designed to create an untraceable narcotics distribution network concealed within the ordinary fabric of urban life. The strategy was elegant in its ruthlessness. Rather than establishing new smuggling corridors that might attract surveillance, the cartel acquired existing transportation assets. They purchased taxi companies through layers of shell corporations. They recruited compliant drivers through front employment agencies. They modified vehicles in cartel-controlled shops and reintegrated them into legitimate fleets. These taxis operated normally most of the time. They accepted passengers. They ran meters. They paid taxes. They filed regulatory reports. They were invisible precisely because they were real. But during designated windows, specific vehicles received coded dispatch instructions. They switched to cartel routes, completed cartel deliveries, and returned to normal operations before anyone noticed the deviation from standard patterns. The network moved an estimated 3.2 tons of cocaine and 18 million fentanyl pills per month through Los Angeles alone. Street value exceeded $200 million every 30 days. And not a single shipment had been intercepted in over 4 years of continuous operation. But the servers revealed something darker than drug routes. They revealed the protection architecture. Payments to city inspectors who ignored vehicle modifications during mandatory reviews. Bribes to permit officers who expedited license renewals without verification. Kickbacks to enforcement personnel who scheduled inspections conveniently after deliveries were completed. The cartel had purchased regulatory immunity at every administrative level. At the apex of this payment structure was a single authorization code that appeared on every significant transaction. A code that FBI financial analysts traced through 23 shell corporations, 5 offshore banking relationships, and 1 charitable foundation ostensibly dedicated to improving urban transportation access. That code belonged to Deputy Mayor Raymond Castellano. A fictional name for this telling, but the evidence documented in federal files was devastating in its specificity. For 7 years, Castellano had overseen transportation policy for the city of Los Angeles. He championed taxi industry modernization. He appointed regulatory commissioners. He controlled permit approvals. He shaped enforcement priorities. And according to the cartel's own meticulous records, he had received $41 million in payments since 2018. This was not corruption in the ordinary sense. This was command-level integration. The city's transportation infrastructure had been consciously redesigned to serve cartel interests. And the architect of that redesign occupied an office at City Hall. At 4:45 a.m. on the second day, Federal Command established operations inside a converted facility in downtown Los Angeles. The building had served as a commercial parking structure 72 hours earlier. Now it housed 80 analyst workstations, a tactical coordination center, and a wall-sized digital display showing every identified cartel asset in Southern California. The screen glowed with red markers. Over 380 locations spanning Los Angeles, Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Ventura.
Taxi depots, dispatch centers,
Modification facilities, stash houses,
financial fronts,
residential properties connected to network leadership. The operation was designated Federal Initiative Pacific Gold. The objective was complete network elimination. The resources assembled were extraordinary. Over 1,400 federal agents from FBI, DEA, ICE, and DHS tactical divisions. 52 SWAT teams from local, state, and federal agencies. 14 Black Hawk helicopters. 8 Customs and Border Protection surveillance drones. Armored vehicles positioned at strategic points throughout the region. The U.S. Navy had moved a patrol cutter into position offshore to intercept any maritime escape attempts. At 5:02 a.m., the execution order transmitted across all secure channels. What followed was 7 hours of coordinated devastation against Sinaloa infrastructure throughout Southern California. In the San Fernando Valley, FBI strike teams breached a warehouse disguised as an automotive parts wholesaler. Inside, they discovered a drug superlab producing synthetic fentanyl at industrial scale. The facility possessed capacity to manufacture 600,000 pills daily. Agents seized 4.8 million pills in various stages of production and detained 13 cartel chemists. In the hills above Bel Air, SWAT units assaulted a fortified mansion belonging to a network financial controller. The property featured reinforced entry points, ballistic-rated windows, and an underground panic room. None of these measures proved adequate. Inside, agents recovered $72 million in cash stored within industrial containers, along with financial documentation detailing payments to 19 California officials across multiple agencies. Near the border in Imperial County, DEA and Border Patrol units located an active drug tunnel. The entrance was concealed within a commercial warehouse. The tunnel extended 1,600 feet into Mexican territory. Agents recovered 2.7 tons of cocaine staged for transport and communications equipment linking tunnel operations to Los Angeles dispatch networks. In Orange County, ICE agents raided a residential compound functioning as a human trafficking transit point. The cartel had been moving migrants through the taxi network, using them as cover for drug shipments while charging thousands per person for transportation services. 28 trafficking victims were recovered. 14 cartel operatives were arrested. By 12:15 p.m., the operation had achieved its primary objectives. Total narcotics seized exceeded 8.2 tons. Over 500 vehicles were impounded. Asset freezes surpassed $480 million. And 94 individuals sat in federal custody, including dispatch coordinators, fleet supervisors, financial controllers, and cartel logistics specialists. The cartel underworld absorbed more damage in 7 hours than it had sustained in the previous 7 years combined. But the most significant arrest occurred at 1:23 p.m. Federal agents approached Deputy Mayor Raymond Castellano at a fundraising lunch in Beverly Hills. He was seated with campaign donors and political allies. Agents approached quietly. They presented credentials. They explained the situation in measured tones. They escorted him to a waiting vehicle. He did not resist.
He did not speak.
He stared forward as the car pulled away from the restaurant entrance. The man who had protected the cartel for 7 years was now in federal custody. And the system he had constructed to shield their operations was about to collapse entirely. The investigation into internal corruption commenced within hours of Castellano's detention. Federal prosecutors assembled a specialized team to trace every payment, every approval, every official act that had enabled the taxi empire to operate undetected. What they documented was systematic betrayal at a magnitude that disturbed even investigators with decades of experience. Castellano had not operated alone. The servers contained payment records involving 38 city and county officials. Permit clerks received monthly stipends ranging from $3,000 to $8,000. Building inspectors earned bonuses for filing false reports. Transportation commissioners received six-figure payments for favorable regulatory decisions. But the corruption extended beyond municipal government. 23 law enforcement officers across multiple agencies had accepted cartel money. Patrol officers who ignored suspicious activity during deliveries. Sergeants who altered shift schedules to create predictable coverage gaps. detectives who fed investigation details to network contacts before raids could be executed. One assistant police chief had received $1.1 million over 5 years to ensure taxi-related complaints received minimal attention. Traffic enforcement near known cartel locations declined by 71% during his tenure. Citizen reports of suspicious vehicle activity were filed and forgotten in administrative limbo. The border revealed even deeper infiltration. Payment records documented bribes to 14 customs and border protection officers. Their assignment was straightforward. When designated trucks crossed at designated times, inspections were perfunctory. Shipping manifests were accepted without secondary verification. Enhanced screening protocols were waived. The cartel had purchased a corridor through the most fortified border in the Western Hemisphere. They had paid for guaranteed passage. And for 4 years, tons of narcotics had flowed through that corridor while officers collected monthly payments and performed their duties with careful blindness. For honest officers who had worked those same assignments, the revelations were devastating. One veteran agent, interviewed for internal review, described feeling physically sick when he reviewed the list of compromised personnel. These were colleagues he had trusted, partners who had protected him, men and women who had betrayed everything the badge represented. Arrests proceeded rapidly. The assistant police chief was detained at his residence at 5:30 a.m. He attempted to destroy his phone by throwing it into running garbage disposal. The device's storage had been synchronized to cartel servers now in federal possession. Every message was preserved. 14 patrol officers were arrested during coordinated morning operations. Their union representatives received no advance notification. Several officers initially claimed undercover status. Their banking records contradicted every claim they made. Border officers were arrested in coordination with CBP Internal Affairs. Most surrendered quietly. One attempted to flee south across the border he had been paid to protect. Mexican federal authorities detained him in Tijuana and transferred him to American custody within 6 hours. By week's end, 54 law enforcement personnel and government officials faced federal charges. The prosecutions would extend for years. The institutional damage would require a generation to repair. But investigators understood the essential truth. The corruption had been mapped. The penetration had been quantified. And the systematic protection that had allowed the taxi empire to flourish was being dismantled one indictment at a time. The badge would be rebuilt. But first, those who had dishonored it would answer for their betrayals. The complete architecture of Operación Flota Dorada became clear only after months of forensic analysis. The taxi empire had not been a Los Angeles operation with regional connections. It had been a continental logistics network with Los Angeles as its command center. Distribution routes extended throughout California and into neighboring states. Narcotics moved north to the Bay Area through taxi-affiliated courier services operating under commercial delivery contracts. They moved east to Phoenix and Las Vegas through trucking companies that shared dispatchers and financial infrastructure with the taxi network. They moved south through vehicles that alternated between legitimate passenger service and cartel transport on rotating schedules. The financial architecture proved equally expansive. Cartel proceeds flowed through 63 shell corporations registered across California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Delaware. Money moved through restaurant chains, commercial laundries, parking lot management companies, and a network of auto repair facilities that maintained suspiciously empty service bays despite steady reported revenues. One shell entity, registered as an environmental nonprofit promoting sustainable urban transportation, had received $17 million in state green initiative grants. The funds were designated for electric vehicle conversion programs. Instead, they financed taxi modifications and compartment installation operations across 4 counties. The routing algorithms discovered on seized servers revealed disturbing sophistication. Cartel data scientists had developed predictive models that anticipated law enforcement patterns with remarkable accuracy. They knew which highways received increased patrol coverage on specific days. They knew which way stations were understaffed during shift transitions. They knew which border crossings experienced the longest processing delays and calculated optimal timing for inspection avoidance. The network possessed capacity to move 3.5 tons of narcotics weekly without triggering alerts. For 4 years, that capacity had operated at near maximum utilization. The cumulative volume staggered investigators. Conservative estimates suggested over 700 tons of cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine had passed through the taxi network since its establishment. The human cost defied calculation. Fentanyl pills distributed through the network had contributed to overdose deaths across Southern California and beyond. Communities saturated with inexpensive, highly lethal drugs experienced devastating addiction surges. Families had been destroyed. Neighborhoods had been hollowed out. Emergency services had been overwhelmed. And at the center of this catastrophe, one man had occupied a city office and authorized every shipment. Castellano had not been deceived. He had not been peripheral. He had been a full operational partner in cartel activities. His vision had shaped the network's design. His influence had protected its operations. His ambition had sustained its growth. Federal prosecutors would eventually describe him as the most corrupt municipal official in California history. The characterization was not rhetorical. It was earned through betrayal measured in tons of poison and thousands of destroyed lives. Sentencing proceedings commenced 5 months after the initial raids. Federal courtrooms across Southern California processed defendants systematically. Evidence was overwhelming. Most defendants cooperated to secure reduced sentences. Those who refused faced the complete weight of federal prosecution. Deputy Mayor Raymond Castellano received life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The sentencing judge observed that his conduct had enabled the deaths of thousands of Americans through drug overdoses. There would be no early release. No successful appeals. No redemption. The network's operational controller received 48 years. Financial coordinators received sentences ranging from 28 to 42 years. Fleet managers and dispatch supervisors received 22 to 35 years. Even drivers who had knowingly participated faced substantial prison terms. Corrupt law enforcement officers received enhanced sentences reflecting their betrayal of public trust. The assistant police chief was sentenced to 38 years. Patrol officers received 18 to 28 years. Border officers faced comparable terms plus permanent bars preventing any future return to the United States following release. In total, 143 individuals received federal prison sentences for their roles in the taxi empire. Combined terms exceeded 3,200 years. The message resonated clearly. Participation in cartel infrastructure at any level would result in consequences that consumed lifetimes. Asset forfeiture proceeded in parallel. Over 500 vehicles were crushed under federal supervision. The metal was recycled. The hidden compartments were documented and destroyed. None of those taxis would ever transport anything again. Financial assets totaling $480 million were permanently seized. Bank accounts were emptied. Properties were auctioned. Shell corporations were dissolved. The cartel's California treasury ceased to exist. The 8.2 tons of seized narcotics were destroyed under DEA supervision. Each package was cataloged, photographed, and incinerated. The drugs that would have killed thousands were reduced to ash. The taxi empire that had operated in plain sight for 4 years was not reformed.
It was erased.
Los Angeles returned to its rhythms within weeks. Traffic resumed familiar patterns. Passengers hailed cabs without apprehension. The disruption faded from public awareness. But something fundamental had shifted. Transportation regulators implemented enhanced oversight protocols that spread nationwide. Vehicle inspection requirements tightened. Dispatch systems faced mandatory auditing procedures. Information sharing between agencies became standard practice rather than bureaucratic exception. The cartel's methodology, concealing operations within legitimate infrastructure, had been exposed and counteracted. Similar networks in other cities quietly dissolved. The risk calculus had changed irrevocably. Within law enforcement communities, the case became essential study material. The investigation demonstrated what coordinated federal action could accomplish. It illustrated how financial analysis could illuminate networks invisible to physical surveillance. It proved that no system was too integrated, no cover too sophisticated, to survive dedicated investigation and overwhelming force. For affected communities, recovery would require far longer. The addiction epidemic continued. Families shattered by overdose remained shattered. The damage inflicted by 4 years of unrestricted drug distribution could not be reversed through arrests and asset seizures alone. But the supply corridor was severed. The protection network was demolished. The man who had enabled it would die behind federal walls. And the city that had unknowingly hosted a cartel empire finally understood what had been operating within its shadows. Power does not always announce itself through violence. Sometimes it arrives wearing ordinary clothing and driving familiar vehicles. Sometimes it hides inside systems so mundane that scrutiny never occurs. Sometimes it builds empires in plain sight while everyone watches something else. The taxi empire demonstrated that truth. It also demonstrated that such power, however carefully concealed, cannot survive the weight of evidence, cannot survive coordinated investigation, cannot survive the determination of those who refuse to watch their cities converted into cartel logistics hubs. If you watched this far, you understand why this story matters. Tap like so others encounter it. Comment expose if you believe corruption deserves sunlight wherever it hides. And remember, this was a fictional dramatization inspired by real threats and documented methodologies. The names were invented. The events were constructed for narrative purposes. But the warning is genuine. The next empire might not utilize taxis. It might employ something even more integrated into daily existence. And the only defense against such infiltration is awareness combined with refusal to assume that ordinary guarantees safety.
Stay vigilant. Stay informed.
And never forget that the most dangerous power is the kind you never think to question.